DJ Cole, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So by the time this airs, your face is known.
It'll be known now.
I'm going to personally post your face all over all the social media platforms, just in detail, like just running around. But you made a deliberate decision early on to not show your face. Why was that?
One was a confidence thing. Living in the shadows for so long, it's very hard to come out and tell people who you did or what you did and your background and everything else. And then I was looking at government contracting, and I didn't know training GBRS was going to be a full-time thing. I thought that was going to be the move. I didn't want my identity to be out there anyway. We've kind of we've burnt the ships. There is no retreat. This is the only way forward now. So yeah, it's time, I think, for us, because the emotional state we're in now and the ability to say it, the eyes tell a lot. And when you take away that, the human interaction, it's missing. So we take away the blur, like you can see the emotion, you can see the stories, you can see the experience through our eyes. And I think a lot of people are missing out on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never really thought about it like that. Whenever I see dudes do it now, it's like a marketing tactic. You know what I mean? Like it's not real because there's no reason to blur their face. But if I went back into my contracting days and did media, you'd have to blur your face. Mm-hmm. I mean, you'd be compromised all over the world, which we are now. But that's interesting, man. I wanted to talk to you guys about GBRS's story, because people who don't know kind of what that means in its context, as far as like what you guys wanted out of it. Let's talk about like the origin stories of GBRS. I mean, we don't have to get into details of the acronym, because there's actually another acronym for it, right?
Global Battlefield Research Solutions.
You just made that shit up just now.
Yeah,
just now.
We got a t-shirt and everything.
How'd that start? I mean, how'd that start for you guys? Are you picking up his audio good?
Yeah, maybe a little bit closer.
Yeah. Probably right
cool.
there.
Yeah. Going through a med board right at 17 years. Got hurt real bad. I was in a bad spot, dude. I was. I went to NICO, all kinds of prescription meds for like my last decade in, and I was not ready to retire. I didn't. I had a bad injury, bad infection. The rehab went extra long, and then we got electrocuted. Went through that whole process, and we had started a skateboard company off just art therapy. It was so beneficial for me, and so many guys were in that hospital, and you saw it. It was clear as day. Nothing more than painting a brush and painting a mask. Like, you could get out some serious emotional trauma, and it really helped me. It saved me. And we came back. I told him, and he had already started a couple businesses. He ran all the backside, and we started making skateboards, art therapy inspired, and started doing little collaborations with companies. And that thing started to go, but I was still getting ready to do the contract stuff. I was still gearing up. I was trying to rehab myself, and kind of sat down one day, and he's like, what'll keep you from going overseas? Didn't want to be the last guy to get killed in Afghanistan. Like, I got kids now, got a wife, got people to depend on me. He didn't want to go, and we're connected at the hip. He's like, what if we start something here and give back? Because knowledge transfer was the real focus. Like, there's so much information we have. Like, we messed this up so many times. We can save people. We can, through just a conversation. He's like, well, let's start GBRS. And within 45 minutes, he formed an LLC, and we started. And
yeah, that's Cole. I get the impression from talking to you that this education, whether it's philanthropic or just letting people know, is an important subject matter for you. And is that because your own transitional issues? Like, why are you so passionate about this idea of education and compassion for this transition?
I think it was easily transferable from our time in the military and our care and what we learned there. We referenced lessons learned in blood. We didn't want to relearn those. And the transition of getting out and kind of reinventing yourself, being able to pass on the knowledge that we've learned over the last 20 years and still help, the real end user. We've known those pains, losses, evolving tactics, technology, and we wanted to simplify that and really make it safer and better for all those men and women.
Yeah, it's interesting as a correlation when you look at guys like yourself that served in the teams and then development group and then had a significant operational career where your career field defined you. I mean, people misunderstand or misrepresent that culture because it's not a job. You are that. Your whole life is immersed in it. I think I heard Jocko talking to Jack Carr recently about whether putting your family or the mission first. And it was always the mission, because you couldn't have a family if you didn't put the mission first and foremost, because you wouldn't survive. And so you had to be hard focused. But that comes with a loss. I mean, like when I reflect on my career, I pissed it all away personally, but I achieved a lot. So I got the rack of ribbons. I got all the certification, the qualifications, and probably the clout in this realm, in this world because of it. But I lost everything personally. I gave it all up. I mean, I was a piece of shit. I mean, I when looking back on it now, I have a high level of respect for guys who struck the balance, which I don't know how they did. But there are guys that were operators that were very good, and they had this home life balance. That wasn't me. I was like 100% committed to the mission. And then when you transition, then your life gets turned upside down, because all you're left with is what you left behind. And sometimes that's nothing. I was sleeping on it. I was probably a senior E8, just separated from the military and went to the reserve component where I made Sergeant Major, and was sleeping on an air mattress in an apartment complex in Texas going, how the fuck did how did I regress myself and get into this position? Cole, you guys are doing GBRS and now you have a couple hard focuses. What do you see GBRS being as a company, and then what does that future look like for you guys?
I mean, GBRS keeps evolving every day. We're going to stick to our core values on providing the best training that we can, both to service men and women, but also civilians that want to educate themselves, as well as products, and really kind of help that transition, not only for military, but individuals that feel like they may be alone. I mean, we've made every mistake.
Yeah, you guys. So tell me the story about how you grew up without knowing each other, but 30 minutes apart. Your dads were both SEALs. So how does that?
So my dad was a SEAL. His uncle was a SEAL.
Yeah.
So I actually rolled in his class. I got rolled in diving, pool competency, part of second phase in BUDS. I got rolled in his class. And I was 17 when I went to BUDS. I rolled up there as the youngest guy in the class, and I got one of the older guys to buy me beer. And I walked up to all the young guys, all the cronies who were up top on the third deck, and I walked up 2 cases of beer. Hey guys, I'm DJ. Within 5 minutes, Virginia Beach comes out of his mouth. I'm from Virginia Beach. Started striking up a conversation. We made it through second phase, and we got we got 2 weeks off to go home for Christmas. We flew back home to Virginia Beach. His family came down, met my family, and became best friends ever since. But it, like for me, that transition piece was hard because I grew up in the teams. Like it's all I ever knew. My dad graduated BUDS when my mom was 6 months pregnant with me. So my entire life was in the team room. It was always like Rudy Bosch was his CMC. Like I grew up in that era. So like that's all I ever knew. So when I joined, I thought I was going to do log PT my entire fucking life. I did.
Yeah, you were prepared though.
Yeah, like there wasn't a combat thing going on. We didn't have to deal with a lot of loss. He was gone all the time. 300 days a year. Did 10 deployments. So I knew that life. I knew PT. I knew the team life. I knew how to shit talk with team guys at a very professional level at a very young age. So when I joined the teams, I felt like I had been there for a long time, and it really fucked me up because the old guys were not having that. So you got smacked down pretty quick when you first come in, or reset to reality. But for me, it was all I ever wanted. And then when you saw key individuals across my career, how good they were, just baseline how good they were. And the only way to get there, I felt, if you followed their metric, was you stripped out everything else and you became obsessed with being the very best at everything you could. The very best jumper, CQB, shooting, tactician, just your mindset physically, because there's a big physical component to everything we do. And it basically became on a straight track to become what I feel like as good as I could possibly be. And we had to cut out everything. Family, personal. I mean, luckily for me, I rolled into a group that really put it first. They sacrificed everything. And I thought it was worth it. I did. Like that mission set, being around those people, the caliber, just the performance on demand, you couldn't have a bad day.
Yeah.
And to me, I justify with the wife. No one's going to die if I'm a 65% husband. No one. If I do that shit at work, people will fucking die. You just can't. It deserves the obsession. The nation deserves it. They deserve an easy button, push, come rescue me and my whole family right now. And they deserve a force that's completely dedicated. It's like, ideally, everybody's 6'4", 275. They look like Dolph Lundgren. They're the best shooters in the world. They're the professional skydivers, professional divers, everything. And I thought the only way to even get on par is to completely obsess and surround myself with people who are better than me.
How do you come off that high though? Like how do you, when talking about transition, I mean, we had talked about your circumstance and you told me it almost killed you. How do you, I mean, I'm assuming from my own experience, you just don't. I mean, what happens is you eventually get conditioned or reconditioned and then you accept your new reality.
You chase it.
So that was
you
the
chase
issue.
it for a while.
You chase it.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You contract, you do, booze, you pop pills, you do something, you're chasing that sense of belonging. And thank God for these dudes. Like with, the skateboard stuff and GBRS, like we had to make the team within the team. And if you got to come to Virginia Beach and check it out, but we built a little compound. We've got a kill house, we've got a gym. Everybody in there is team related, like they're all cherry picked. They're very selective with who we let in that building for a reason. Cut out all the bullshit and left everything we loved about it.
So you created your own team room.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Fieldcraft is a reflection of my selfishness in creating a culture around things that reminded me of the teams. And you guys, where does the skateboard component come in? How did that evolve? What is that from?
So I grew up skateboarding in Chesapeake, Virginia. There's nothing to do out there. I grew up on a small family farm, and the old man was gone. He wasn't there. So TV, my mom, and skateboarding raised me. Had a couple older kids that lived down the road, had half pipes, built one in the backyard and just did that, started competing. Then I started getting hurt. And then it was always, that was a friction point. I'd get hurt, I'd get grounded from skateboarding. Like, if you break your arm, you can't go to buds. That was always the end goal. Like, got to be a Navy SEAL. And then when I joined, I basically had to shelf it the entire time. Like, I couldn't justify rolling an ankle and missing a deployment.
You can't play basketball.
No, you can't do shit. Like, and then it got to the point where skateboarding competitively at 140 pounds when I joined the Navy to now at 220 is very different.
Yeah.
It's like you take a fall at 220 and break your wrist.
Oh, yeah.
The whole team is going to kill you. Like, they are going to be pissed. And it just shows, like, I couldn't justify that. I could justify combatives. I could justify skydiving. It's part of my job. I couldn't justify wakeboarding, longboarding. Like, I couldn't justify it. I couldn't justify getting hurt with something that would take me away from deployment.
I mean, I think the creativity and the art therapy that DJ found, reminds you of being a child. When you're growing up and skating, like you want to be a pro skater.
Yeah.
And now we have a little skate team, and like you see that like sparkle in their eyes, and it's like.
I mean, you remember like flipping through the CCS magazines, looking at all the decks, and you're like,
that's all I wanted to be as a skateboarder.
You find a badass artist, and I'm like, I want you to make me.
Yeah.
Draw this for me.
I grew up in Daytona Beach, and Stonehenge was down the road, and that's all we did was half pipe. I rode my skateboard to school. I used to check in the principal's office. Like that's all. That was life. And it's funny because I have that similar tie where I couldn't justify it, right? And then my big ass on a skateboard now, I'd die if I impacted the ground.
Dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is the art component? Is that your thing, Cole? The art piece of that, or who's the?
No, so we've got a bunch of freelance artists. We had our tattoo artist in the very beginning.
Oh, cool.
So all the guy that did all our ink switched over and did digital. We've actually got one of the Gold Star daughters. She does art for us now.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So you guys own that company together, the skateboard company, and you have Gold Star kids.
All Gold Star.
All Gold Star employees that work for that company.
Families, kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, respectively, they're maybe 18 to.
Yeah, I mean 18 to 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't know what Gold Star is, it's. I advocate for a nonprofit called Gold Star Teen Adventures, GSTA, started by a buddy of mine, Kent Solheim, who now I think he's a group commander. But Gold Star are the kids of the service members who don't make it back, who are killed in combat, and that's super. How did that come to fruition? Like how do you get that to happen? Was that on accident?
No.
Organically.
Yeah. So like growing up in Virginia Beach, like you know them all. You never leave.
Yeah.
The families stay there. So my wife's actually a Gold Star.
Oh, really?
So super in tight with that whole community anyway.
Wow.
And unfortunately, we're all one giant family, and they all graduate high school and COVID hit. They're like, they need jobs. Well, good, because we need workers. And we've known them their entire lives, like knee high to a duck. Like 3 years old, we've known them all.
Yeah.
And it's like we love them. We see them, family barbecues. Like, I mean, I think we tell those kids 3 times a day, like, I love you.
That's
we
so
do.
awesome.
Like, we've known them forever. So it is one big family. Selfishly, when you see them, you think about their old man. You see their moms. You know the struggle because you've had to knock on those doors. You know how fucking hard that is.
Yeah.
And now when you see them from where they were, just not sheltered, but shielded, because their dads were special.
Yeah.
And they did get killed. So we threw a barrier around them. And now that barrier's kind of off. And the only people that know the trauma they go through are the Gold Stars themselves. So we put them all in a room and we just let them work it out. Like, if you got some shit on your mind, if you're going through some shit, talk about it right now. Wow. And we do. We have open forum, dude. We cry in there all the fucking time.
That's awesome, man.
Like, to me, it's amazing. Like, to watch the transition from where they started to now, I couldn't be more proud.
That's amazing.
It is. Like, it's good.
Are you guys still close with the teams? Are you guys still close with the units? Because I found it hard. I mean, that machine chews and spits out dudes constantly, right? And the momentum of that is unstoppable. And so I know a lot of guys who try to stay connected, but it's difficult. Have you guys had any type of connection with the units that you used to work with? Or is it kind of just like, hey, that was a part of my life that's gone and forgotten, or not forgotten, but it at least segmented for my life now, and you're doing your own thing? Or are you guys still involved at all?
We still got close friends you did a bunch of stuff with, like family friends. I mean, kids still get together and all that. I find that I kind of wish I would have moved. It's very hard to stop at a red light and go into 7-Eleven and see the guys and getting ready for deployment, and they're talking about this and that, and you're like, oh, God, I miss that so much. But no, I think separating, trying to get some distance away from that, it's better for you.
Yeah,
because if not, you start to obsess about it and you start to second guess things, and
like maybe there's another. I don't know. There's another light. There's another fight. They're gonna give me a call. Maybe I should just give them my number and stay on the hook.
I mean, we say there's that separation, but I mean, we're here for any of them, and we keep contact with them. And again, that transition is such a sensitive time that we try and encourage them not to cut themselves short and let them know like it's okay and not to relive our mistakes that we've done in that transition. So,
well, I mean, one of those transitions is, I mean, the ego portion of it. When guys leave the team and they leave the community and they start to do Fieldcraft, they start to do GBRS, there's a lot of hate spitting because they're doing something else.
Yeah.
And the thing I tell the guys now, because they come in the shop all the time, talk, until you've done the transition, you have no idea. You've never been a civilian. You joined the military at 17, 18 years old. You've never had a job at McDonald's. You have no idea what an HR complaint is. You have no idea what social media is. You don't know what a troll account is. You don't know about social media bans and shadow bans and all this bullshit you have to do. It's hard, man. It's a lot harder than I thought it was.
I compare it to, our idea of singleton operations is like this one idea and concept. And I'm like, this is like true singleton operations, because you're out there flapping and you have no support. You don't have a platoon of Rangers coming to save your ass. It's just you. And that in a way is also freedom, but I also think it's like a burden of responsibility as an entrepreneur. Like, I often think what we're building is also a lily pad for guys coming out, because those dudes, like, your peers are still serving. They're still fighting. Your time got cut short because of injury. My peers are squadron sergeant majors, command sergeant majors, group sergeant majors, and those dudes are going to get out, and they're going to have a few more rotations than I had, and there's going to be a different world that they come into. And if we're not preparing the objective, waiting for them, they're going to be screwed. And they're going to insulate like we do, compartmentalize all those feelings like we do, and then look at ourselves like a burden, which we do, and then and check out. And that's what scares the shit out of me for the future for guys that are still serving.
Some of the things we talked about is guys want to leave the community, they want to leave that organization, they want to reinvent themselves completely, and they forget you haven't been solo this entire time. You've had an admin guy doing this. You've had corpsmen doing that. I mean, you've had people coddling you for 20 years, essentially. Like, they've been doing all the backside. And then people want to lift and shift and do a new career with no backside and think they can just do it. And that's when they tank. Like, don't try to do it on your own, man. Build a team and then go. Like, you have the concepts. You know how to work high-performance teams. There's nothing high-performance about you by yourself. It's all the people that got you there. It's the same thing in business. Like, just don't forget it. Like, all those admin people, they got you there. It's the same thing on this side.
Yeah, it's so interesting that we don't remember that. We're capable of building teams, but also we've been, like you said, coddled. I mean, we were used to having support mechanisms and enablers and everything to help us succeed, but you have to build it from scratch. I mean, you're the Beckwith now. You got to start from zero, man. You have to reinvent everything. And you, as you guys build this business, I know you guys have dealt with the same dilemmas. We talked about the challenges of building business. What's been some of the most difficult challenges that you didn't expect that you were working through? And how are some of those ways that you kind of navigated that?
There's a laundry list.
Yeah.
Man. Well, one, launching a company in the middle of COVID, that was a major challenge. I think all of us can say that we've stayed extremely flexible in the decision making. Our lives kind of were at risk on it. Same thing with starting a new venture. Like, your families are at risk, and staying flexible while maintaining core values. The hardest thing, man, expectation management.
Yeah.
Like, for me is realizing that when I was in the military, I could walk into pretty much any room inside of any given compound and Thanos my fingers and people snap too. In the civilian world, it's not that way.
Yeah.
Like, you shoot your lawyer an email, like, hey, have this done. 10 days later, no response. Like, okay, where are my T-shirts at? And they're like, oh, that's on a 6-week back order. You didn't want to let me know that? Like, just the communication. Like, you can't make these people snap unless you control it all. Unless you have trusted agents everywhere, it's very hard to get people to produce, like, performance on demand. That's why we keep saying it. Like, I need you to act right now. Like, why is this taking so long? Like, I don't understand. Like, you don't realize that dude has 55 other clients. Like, he's got everything else going on. Like, you're just one of many.
Yeah.
It's like,
Or he's just lazy as shit. He just doesn't
exactly.
want to do his job.
You're like, damn, can you just be a professional? It's like, right now, could you just be a pro, please? Shit.
Communication too, and it's been rough. I mean, you got to learn a different style of communication.
Yeah.
You were all on one synced goal, and you don't really have to worry about communication. But now it's like, you have HR, you have marketing, you have product development, syncing that whole team.
I mean, one of the things that happened to us is, you know, he'd say something that pissed me off, and I'd sit on it for 3 or 4 days, and I'd have a little bit of a shitty undertone, and then he'd start to see it, and it'd start to erode our relationship just a little bit, just pulling the strings enough to make it weird. And we finally just had a hard reset. We're like, we're not ever doing that again. The moment I say something you don't like, I want you to say it.
Yeah.
Like,
which is different than being on a team.
It
where
is.
You build resentment because you can't be completely honest in the team room, depending on your status in the team room.
yep. They're just like, right now we control every aspect of this team room.
Yeah.
Everybody, from the lowest person in the shop folding T-shirts all the way to Cole and everybody else. Just say it. Like, we're not letting this thing fester. Never again. Just say it.
Interesting. Yeah. Team dynamics, especially in the hierarchy of tier 1 teams, is completely different than the natural world, right? A civilian world is completely different. The hierarchy, the command, the chain of custody and the chain of command is completely different, man. I've gotten used to it. Like, I look at you guys and go, you know, I feel like, you know, I got the 1,000-yard stare, you get the 100-yard stare, right? And I'm like, just be careful, man. You know, I'm like trying to communicate that business stuff that I've made those gross mistakes on, because it's such a weird world. It's such a weird world. And just some context for the listener who's listening to this, you know, I was been in the Army since I was 17 as well. Like, that's all I know. And so trying to change a language, you know, trying to change your way of doing business completely, because you've been conditioned your entire career of doing it one way, is one of the biggest challenges, which is called the transition, which is the part of the transition, which I don't think ends on a certain date. It's not like a 60 day. It's not a 90 day. It's continuous.
Yeah.
I deal with it probably every single day in some facet. I'm like, damn, I screwed that up. I was just talking to me and Andy Stumford doing a thing like Navy versus Army, and what's the company? Duke Cannon, great company. They reached out to us and they want to do a fundraiser, and they emailed us both. And in the email, it's Army versus Navy, and the winner of whatever challenge we choose gets $100,000 towards charity, and the loser gets $25K towards charity. And so the marketing guy's on that email, and I want to bust Andy's balls because he's a friend of mine. So I'm like, he's on the CC of this email, so he's going to see it. And I'm like, I get why you chose me, but why'd you choose Andy? Like, you could have picked a cooler seal. Like, is Jocko available? And I'm making this joke, except I'm the only asshole in the room laughing. Andy texts me and goes, hey, man, if you want to use Jocko, just let me know. I'll give you his information. And I'm like, are you fucking with me right now? And then he emails the person who's the marketing person. Is like, hey, if you guys want to use Jocko. And the marketing guy is like, he's like awkward. And I'm like, so this would have been funny in a team room. Mm-hmm. This is not working out in a business setting. Yeah. And I had to recant I'm like, guys, I'm just joking. Like, please, I'm just joking. And this shit doesn't translate, man, which is my whole entire experience in civilian life.
Some of that team room humor just does not translate to
There's like a whole new filter, and like, you got to know your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a change. What about the people thing? I know you guys, we don't have to talk about it in detail, of recent have had some issues personality wise with guys. That personally hurts me the most, because I work with a lot of guys that some of my best friends that I thought that have been kind of disaffected, and because of a business or misperception of business, it affected our personal relationships. And I'm like, how the fuck do we let that happen? And it happened. I mean, it happened with me. Like, I can name 2 or 3 instances of it happening. Yeah. How do you navigate issues like that? I mean, how do you navigate that world?
I mean, I basically take GBRS and I put it right at the top where I did the command and the progression there.
Yep.
And I just blind out everything else.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not on that path, nope.
Yeah, that's the mission.
Steamrolling straight ahead. That is the mission. That's the focus. That's the why. Like, that's our families. It's everything in a straight shot that way. You can either get on the train. I'm not stopping. We can't now. Like, the group before the individual. Like, that's what it is. Everything in that building comes before you do.
Yeah.
And that includes me. I mean, that's our stance now.
Absolutely.
If I come off the rails, gotta go.
I mean, the unified vision and loyalty to the mission.
Yeah.
Like, whatever that is.
The loyalty to the group.
Whatever it is that you as a collective are all working towards. I mean, we've been at almost physical blows, but there's never a question of our loyalty to what we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the perfect way to position it, because just like you did in the military, when you set that mindset, that protocol, then everything you're doing is investing in that entity, right? And that kind of loyalty is what you need, because the reality of your circumstance, like many entrepreneurs, is that's not just you and your ego, that's your livelihood, that's your family's security, that's your future generations' family's security. And you have to have that mindset. And what I found is all the guys that kind of have been disaffected were all in it for themselves. They weren't in it for any other purpose or cause. It was kind of their thing, and their egos got in the way, which is why we had to separate, which is going to happen. I mean, personality wise, it just happened. We all have different incentives, different.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
yeah.
Some people don't want to put that motto first. I mean, it's the group before the individual.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Like, this is the end state. Everything goes to that.
I mean, I think one thing that's kept us honest that I've definitely leaned on is as long as I can look myself in the mirror and know I've done everything I can, I'm good with it. Being medically retired from the military, I needed to be okay looking in the mirror and be like, I'm good with what I did or didn't do. That's just kind of what's kept me honest.
Yeah. Are you, I mean, you guys are young. operator wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you transition that energy of what is like operational relevancy and missing the mission, the ops? How does that transition into business for you guys? I mean, how do you, like, you still got the energy to kill bad guys, but how do you take that model and make it succeed now in your business? And how do you define that? I mean, what's the mission now?
To give back. I mean,
Knowledge transfer.
Knowledge transfer.
I mean, the most simplistic way, like that became the why. It's like, got a lot of information up here. Like, I'd really like to help you so you don't have happen to you what happened to us.
Interesting.
make the next generations better than us.
Is that in training? Is that in product? Is that just, that's everything?
That's
Every
everything.
day.
It's mindset. It's from everything. Shoe selection to sling selection, everything in between. Like, everything matters. Like, the details, every single bit of it matters. And the guys who have done it long enough and professionally enough and have obsessed over the details, they realize it. Like, they know it matters. For the people that don't, we'll say the direct consumer, whoever, the people who haven't served in the military but want to know the details, like, you'll find out really quick. Like, all the people who've done it professionally all say the same thing. Master the basics. Obsess over them. Every detail. From, my right big toe driving into the ground to make sure my toes are in line. I mean, everything. Just the finite details, and be able to transfer that over to a SWAT team guy who, we talked about it earlier. Like, I don't know how many rooms I've assaulted, but it's a shit ton. And 95% have been benign. It's like, if you can connect reality to what they're doing, you only have to be locked on 100% of your ability for the next 14 minutes. This house is small, dude. Like, every angle in here is trying to kill you right now. We talk about high-end CQB and everything else. It's like, we can connect it to reality and let them know, like, you really got to lock it on right here. Not on the drive in, not on the drive home, not on the foot patrol in, not on foot patrol home. Right now, next 13 minutes, 100% of your ability, because your life depends on it. My life does, his life does. If we all just have the collective, basically obsession, or the willingness to go the extra mile, the proof's in the pudding. You see it. We saw it. I saw it after we got through selection. You see the team within the team, you're like, holy shit. Like, I've never seen it be that good, because everybody's obsessed. Like,
Interesting.
Like, there is no daytime. We talk about, like, the levels of CQB. We call it Virginia Beach CQB. Like, we're just moving around, just having fun. Real world CQB, and like a show off. Like, HQ comes down, they want to watch your team do a run. Like, all right, everybody really turn it on, really dynamic, really sexy. It's not real. You wouldn't do that if there was a dude in that room. We strip it all out and we only do real. So when we train, that's the only thing we put out. That flashy shit on Instagram, it's not real. I wouldn't do that if there was a dude in the room. We do that shit. When we train, it's very different.
Yeah, I've noticed that's the disconnect, right, between even taking guys from the tactical realm and separating out the guys from the tactical realm who've killed bad guys in combat, who've seen the realities of combat and war. That whole learning curve has completely changed how we look at training, how we look at real world operations. And what I've realized in being, I guess, in the tactical space is the overwhelming majority of tactical instructors are the guys who have modeled and captured the scripts and the behavior, but have never witnessed what that is. I mean, like you were talking about before, like the first bad guy killed in Iraq, my barrel was touching his chest. I mean, it's like that close, confined space where it's not about what you know, it's about what you can get away with. So you take your skill sets, you build them up, understanding if you're following the basics, and everything's stripped away because reality is smashing you down. At least if you have something there and you understand what's left, you could survive. And guys don't realize that. That's why they have the flashy and the sexy. It's like, that's not applicable, man. That's not how it really works. And I'm glad to see companies like yours from a different service, a different organization, coming out very public about the information that you disseminate and teaching guys. Now, I want to ask you, because there's a big controversy about teaching civilians nowadays. And I haven't even asked this to you offline. But what's your take on military versus law enforcement versus civilians? Are you going to train civilians? Or are you going to just stick to law enforcement? How is that going to work out for you guys?
It's military law enforcement. We've got private clients we deal with, we train with. It's not the typical open enrollment, just for the safety factor. Just the vetting process takes so much into it. I think we do a really good job in the private stuff. The civilian translation, we call them universals. The concept of the pistol drill is going to make so much sense to you that when you get that course of instruction, you can apply that to teach your 6-year-old how to ride a bike. Because the obsession, the details, they're ingrained so much, we just hit them at nauseum. You're like, I probably should tell my kid, you really have to drive home with this leg to get the pedals rolling. Like, I forgot that detail. I forgot how hard she needs to push down to make the bike actually move. It's like everything we do, we try to just obsess over the details, because at the end of the day, inside of that 3 feet, when that muzzle flash goes off, you're either trained or you're untrained. Have you trained for that reality, or have you not? Let's get a universal application that just translates to everything. Angles and distance and CQB, that's a universal. That angle and distance right there, that's a universal application. It doesn't matter if you're walking to the bathroom at the airport, taking a long way home so you don't go face to face with some dude, or in and out of elevators, everything. Just the situational awareness, the preparedness, and the willingness to actually act on that, I think, become the main focus.
Yeah, it is universal. It's completely universal. And it's like, that's like, a lot of guys are like, well, we can't train with GBRS. I'm like, well, just listen to what they're saying. Because if they're teaching the process, because they're giving you the process through mindset, that's something that could truly be applied in practice every single day. You don't need to know how to shoot the target in a specific technical way. That's the easy part. It's the process that you're honing and everything else, which I'm looking forward to seeing more of you guys' content as it rolls out and you guys start elevating into 2022, because you guys not only do content, but the product, the military training, law enforcement training, but now the product is something that you guys are going to focus in on complementing everything together, right? Mm-hmm. What's the idea behind product for you guys? Because a lot of guys private label their stuff and they just put it out there, but you guys are doing things that are fixing problems that are real problems that everybody can get into because it's a product offering. How do you guys look at products, and then what's the rollout? Do you guys have a segmented calendar where you're rolling out product? How's it work for you guys as a business?
I mean, we look at products and developing them kind of from the get-go. We're solving for a solution or a gap in the market, and not only identifying that, but we can't overprice it. It's got to be functional. We're not just going to make a knife and tag GBRS and it's like, you should buy it because it's a GBRS knife. It's like, well, if you want to carry concealed, if you want to carry it with a kit, if it needs to be non-metallic, like there's different solutions and tools based on your situation, your kind of intent and need. I mean, that's how we approach training too, whether it's Gov, Mil, LE, or specific civilian clients. That it's like, there's an intent. It's a very lengthy process even for us to do that kind of training. But you go to a SWAT team, it's like, what are your problems? Let's add some tools. Like, we're not going to tell you have to go against your ROEs. You have to do it a certain way. We're not in that situation, but we can maybe add a tool or two and help that team unity. Same if it's a civilian individual. Like, what's your intent? Like, you just want to feel comfortable with a pistol and defending yourself at home? Okay. Let's find you a pistol that you like and fits in your hand for what your intent is.
I think a lot of guys, especially the SWAT team guys, the CQB professionals, they really like the concept that we don't dictate tactics. Like, you don't come to a GBRS CQB course and we roll out a PowerPoint and teach you CQB.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a thing. We're not giving you anything. Let's take your SOPs and TTPs. Yeah. Let's pressurize them and let's see if you'll actually do that under duress. Because a lot of it's smoke and mirrors. Like, you've got a guy he's never actually encountered anything, not even an armed suspect, a violent situation in close proximity. They've never had it. So you can, a lot of times, with just a mindset conversation, you can shift them completely. Now you add in some blank fire and you watch the wheels come off. that concept you were taught by so-and-so is correct, but not when you're hitting a double wide. The concept is not there. They'd never let you do that. And they don't know.
Yeah.
I've never encountered it. Like, what you're trying to do is a huge zipper technique for a ballroom. Doesn't make sense here. You can't force the application here. We want them to understand, like when they look at a problem, like, that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't come back the sniff test. Like, would you do that for real? If there was a guy in that bathroom with a loaded pistol, you heard him rack it, would you take it the same way? The answer is no. And stop fucking doing it.
And stop
You're
pretending.
burning bad reps for the new guys, man. Like, they don't know any better. They've got to see what you're going to do for real. Because the first time that 9mm round blows past your head and you do some different kung fu that you've been honing on your own, it throws everybody off. Like, the team can't have that shit. Do what you're always going to do. Let's see it for real. Let's see it every time. Like, burn 10,000 perfect reps. And you got to perform in a Super Bowl. You've been there before. Your mindset's there.
I mean, I think our mindset, kind of circling back just with the products, it's like we're solving for a solution. We're trying to make it better and the best that we can do. And it's like, you look at weapon slings. I mean, I'm sure you could rattle off 20 things about weapon slings that you hate. So that's a great starting point. You want to make your own weapon sling? Like, let's take all the things that we hate, get rid of them. And I think too, not trying to make it over complex or flashy. It's like, we made this and it's functional. Here's why.
There's utility in mind. Yeah, it's what I love about companies and guys like you is there's not enough of you, but it's like being consultants for the industry. Like, you need fresh blood to come into the space of the industry and innovate, make things more efficient, and recalibrate this thing that constantly evolves. All the old industry, the legacy industries, they're used to getting away with the simple old same. But when you guys come in into a SWAT team and you're challenging them because of real world applications, they should, as an institution, accept that and go, well, damn, man, we feel uncomfortable. Well, that's good, because that means you're changing and that means you're adapting. And that whole segment, so many institutions, so many companies, so many partnerships are just not willing to do. You need you to come in and shake shit up, because if not you, we're just going to be back to where we were, and September 10th mentality. And we don't need that. We need a September 12th mentality. Let's talk about a little bit of you guys' experiences in war and in combat. I mean, you guys had an epic run at it. You guys both medically retired the same year.
It was a year after.
Yep. He was in 20. I was in August of 19.
Yeah. How would you sum up, each of you, your operational and combat experience? Like, if you had to put it into some words.
The learning curve was steep. It for me, because I was so young. I mean, I was stormtrooping in Iraq at 19. It's pretty uncommon. Like, I couldn't even drink a beer until my second rotation. None of it really made sense, because a lot of the training back then in the early days, I felt was a lot of land warfare, a lot of Vietnam tactics, a lot of L ambushes and claymores. And then by the time you got over there, you realized that none of that was applicable. None of it. And we should have just been doing hard CQB every single day, because that's all you're going to do. Drive Humvees and do CQB. That's it. And I think once we got that concept, really saw progression go through the roof. But then I always felt there was something was lacking, and I thought it was at the leadership level. People that were really, really good sled dogs, who were even better leaders, that stayed in those positions for longer, and they cultivated the culture. Like, a bunch of people just wanted to be that one guy, that singleton, and next thing you know, there's 65 mini-me's. And then when they disperse, you're like, okay, like, that's it. Like, once you kind of ascend, I mean, for me, the operational stuff was great. Most of my stuff is super close proximity. I didn't do the VSO thing. We weren't getting these long engagements. Most of my engagements are inside of 20 feet. And a lot of facefuls, a lot of, I've been hit with the complacency quite a few times, like benign target set, like super complacent. All of a sudden, the intel was right. And you kind of walked in there a little bit of lackadaisical shit. You got your ass handed to you. Like, that whole benign concept, like, we did 100 DAs on this rotation, and the first 40 were super benign, nothing, just bad target set, bad intel, and then all of a sudden, boom. You're like, that's why there's a sign outside the front gate, complacency kills. Damn, okay.
Yeah.
And now it snaps in, it's like a hard reality reset. Like, how long can you keep that freshly ingrained in your mind? Like, it is coming, like around that corner. And I feel like all those lessons learned, they kind of culminated for me around year 10. And it was like, if I just treat it like there's always a bad dude around the corner, there's always a blue force guy. I'm going to turn the corner, it'll be a dude wearing multicam with an American flag patch with 4 tubes on his face. I can deconflict. There's going to be a woman holding a baby. There's going to be a dude with a PK. If I expect it all, when I route the corner, I'm not surprised. But you have to play for real all day long. It's very hard to shut off. I kind of got in that mindset where the obsession over what could happen kind of forced my body position, my posture, my mindset, and my communication to expecting contact everywhere, even my personal life.
Interesting.
I'd walk into the old lady and I just, a face full of, I just send it, and bad. Because everything she would say, everything the kids would do was taking me away from work. It became a distraction. I'm like, you're going to get me killed, man. Like, I'm not going to Disney. Like, I'm not going to Disney right now. I got to deploy in 3 weeks. I'm not going. Like, I'm locked in. I'm singularly focused. This is what has to happen because I know the reality of what's going to happen now. It's almost killed me 15 times. Like, I'm not going to let it happen now. Like, now that I've kind of ascended.
You think that was the right answer?
You know what, man? Looking back now, I wouldn't have changed much. I wish I would have open communicated with her more. Yeah. Like, just
tell her what you were feeling.
Dude, just be honest. I mean, she's no stranger to it. She knew.
Yeah.
But even with the guys, like, I didn't open up to these dudes. We just didn't.
Yeah.
Like, out of judgment or out of whatever, just, I'm in a fucking bad spot, man. Like, the pressure of this place is consuming me. It's eating me alive. And it's like, I feel like I never voiced it. I kind of used the combat stuff to kind of mask what I was really going through. And, but I mean, combat it was good, man. It was sustained. It was nice. It's everything I ever wanted. And I really didn't want to go, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Just especially the headspace I was in towards the end.
Yeah. In hindsight, and I don't know what the recipe is there because there's a common kind of conflict, whether it's time on target, time in service, the combination of things where it's like, there is an optimal time to separate and before things implode, especially in that culture where, like you said, you can't even talk about how you feel about stuff. And then you condition yourself just to suppress it. And there is no other way because it's like, why would you talk about that? That's stupid. I don't think a lot of guys go, it's weak. I think they just think it's dumb. It's like, why talk about that? We got other harder focuses, Cole, what about you? What's your sum up of your combat experience?
I mean, it's hard to summarize. Priceless. You think you look at such a high performing team. You start from early 2000s to current day and what that technology's evolved, the mindsets, like the openness, where like early 2000s, you wouldn't tell anybody that what bothered you. Now they're like, we need to talk about it before it becomes a bigger issue. We sacrificed everything. We're willing to. I think we still are. We are. I wouldn't change it for the world. Obviously communicating better. The wives or husbands or whoever that put up with us deploying, the training, the losses. Definitely wish I'd kind of communicated better, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, I learned so much. You start at 17, 19, whatever it is, and you evolve as a person and morals, values, you learn what works, doesn't. As long as you're not repeating mistakes, you just keep evolving and learning. And I definitely have my military career to thank for where I am today. It was good. I mean, you think about when this country was first founded, like people are willing to die for that freedom. And I mean, definitely an honor. Do it.
Yeah, no, I don't, I have a lot of experience working around different units, and I always felt like you guys as organizations, because the Navy doesn't have combat arms, you're it. You're the show. Like in the Army, you got Ranger Battalion, you got big Army infantry or combat arms, and it's very convoluted. So you don't get a special seat. You don't get a special representation or support even. But you guys are it. And that culture of being it, I felt like whenever I was overseas with you guys, like the command gave you a lot of flexibility, like a lot of latitude. Like I was even, I mean, when I was in the agency, driving around doing stuff, and then hear you guys around and doing stuff, like, what? I'm like, why aren't we? Like, they're doing that? Like, what? Like, they would never buy off in that in the Army. Now, even at the highest tiered levels, they would never allow that to happen. And I was always impressed by that because I was like, these guys' commands, trust them to do their job. When it seems like, you know, in my commands in USASOC and USAFIC, like you had to do the 15-page PowerPoint and it took weeks. It's like we didn't have the latitude to do a lot. It felt that way. And I know there's some parts of organizations that don't deal with that, but we certainly did. Did you guys have a good sense from the command and your military experience? Because there's a height, right? Like the maybe 07, 08, where you're like, the gloves are off. Let's go to war. And then things change. Political circumstances. And then you're like, is this really what I want to be in? Did you guys have any ebbs and flows of that?
I had one right before we screened. Just a weird transition time, like say the Obama administration. A lot of entitled stuff started happening.
Yeah.
Command culture shift. People felt entitled coming in as new guys and stuff like that. But really, it was the first time I felt like I was a pawn for the very first time. I felt like I was just a name on a whiteboard. I mean, you get stood down, like task force does something, it's not even you, and you're stood down for 90 consecutive days. And it's like, it eroded us so fast. Just sitting there with nothing to do. And like, we trained our entire adult lives for this moment. We finally get over here, we're away from our families, and you're not going to let us do anything? Like, why? There's no reason. We have all the assets in the world, we can do everything we want to, and you're just not going to let us. Like, it's a very hard pill to swallow. And you just sit there and you're miserable. Like, I just want to go work. That's all I want to do. And I tell the old lady, I was like, I feel like I'm a high level martyr. Like, I just want to show you how willing I am. Like, let me show you how much I love this fucking place. I'll show you right now. I just want the opportunity. Just let me go show you how far I'm willing to go for this group right here.
I mean, peaks and valleys. I think all of us collectively, we were given enough rope to be creative and look outside the box. And we never stopped doing it. I mean, even now, like from where you guys started till now, like you had to look outside the box. Like the standard template doesn't fit what we're doing. But allowing that creativity and enough rope to hang yourself with, and
sometimes you hang yourself.
Yeah.
It happens.
I mean, you weren't there as Cole. You were there representing the command, and you valued that more than anything. So
there's a lot of pressure. I mean, okay, everybody in the military, you're under pressure. I think that was the one thing. The head shit would say it, and I would never, at least me personally, it never really resonated until I was later on in my career. Like when you leave here, you're a direct representation of SEAL Team 10, whatever. Like when you go to 7-Eleven wearing a shirt, some loud ass, whatever, you're representing us. If you get a DUI right now, you are going to fuck us. Like Big HQ is going to find out, and they're going to call here to the CO, who's going to call down to your troop head shed and is going to ream their ass and wonder why one of their dudes is driving around out of town drunk. And you can't justify it. Like you're a full-time Navy SEAL. Why are you shit-faced? And, 2:30 in the morning on a workday. Why? Why are you out boozing? When you put that standard, you couldn't justify it. If I want to be a pro, it really solves it all for me.
Yeah, there's no off season being a pro.
No.
Yeah, in the military, especially at the levels that you guys operated. Do you guys have any regrets in your military careers? Not personal, but military-wise, do you have any regrets?
Yeah. The things I wish I would have said, things I wish I would have done. A couple things overseas, like shoulda, coulda, woulda. A lot of things where if I would have gone back in time, if I had a time machine and I would have re-switched my footing, I'd be dead. And it's like, I don't even know how to do. You and me are walking down a hallway and I always go left. Like, I see a confrontation, I just slide left. And this one time I went right, and if I would have gone left, I would have been dead. Just blind luck, there's no reason, there's no rhyme. I'm just here out of just luck. Like, I don't know. Looking back on it, like, I wish I would have went pro sooner. I wish I would have obsessed on day one, just listened to the old guys and just stuck a thumb drive in the back of their head like the Matrix and just downloaded information. I wish I could go back and just retain every pearl of wisdom that got thrown out in that team room and just stuck it in my pocket. Just so much stuff that goes over the top of your head. Yeah. And maybe the delivery wasn't there, maybe I just wasn't receptive enough, but there was just so much knowledge in every room you walked into. I remember being in Iraq, 22 SAS was there, the unit was there, the Rangers were there. And it's like the amount of experience in that fucking chow hall. Like if I could just go back and shut the doors. And that's kind of what we did. We brought over the guys from the unit and they taught us about palm groves. Like, I don't know anything about palm groves. I've never seen them. Like, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
That's what the bad guys like to hide.
Exactly, man. Like if we just get this knowledge transfer thing in a transferable formula, like we can really save some lives. Like there's some dudes out there with some massive amounts of experience who are just itching to give it away if you'll just shut the fuck up and listen to it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of what we do now. Like every single dude I meet, from the guy editing this podcast to you to chick working the front counter, like I can learn something from everybody.
Yeah.
Like just take the ego out of it. Like you can learn shit from every single person on earth.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some skin level deep regrets on like, I wish I didn't handle that conversation this way or that way. But I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. I broke my leg our first workup before first deployment. I could have been on the Red Wing flight. I was almost in that platoon, but it happened for a reason. Like if we had gone to the next level sooner, would we have been on extortion? Or in, a teammate's kind of position that's not here anymore. But I mean, regrets are not learned from mistakes, and everything happens for a reason, and being at peace with it, however it ended up. Only you can do that. I mean, it's hard. Bury yourself in a bottle or whatever, but yeah, I mean, I loved every minute of it. Mistakes or not, I mean, consistently learned by a fire hose. But the camaraderie and that kind of unity and how we can come in here first time face to face and rap like we've known each other for 20 years. So wouldn't take that back at all.
Yeah, that's what I love about the commands and the kind of the continuity that's developed in the command structures is just, getting out, it's almost like many organizations standing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Developing their own SOPs, and to be able to interoperate is something that not a lot of companies or veterans or people do, period. I mean, I see it in every space from hunting to tactical to overlanding. It's like, why? The best version of it is like the TF-16. It's like it's the JSOC action arm. It's like, when you can collaborate like that, then you truly see what you're capable of, and plus you're leveraging assets and resources. I mean, we got a lot of action to do. If we could leverage our assets and resources, then we can make shit happen faster. And I like that whole idea. I mean, McChrystal was a genius in that way. What's the future for closing out? What's the future for GBRS from like this day forward? What's next for you guys?
We got a lot of products coming.
Yeah.
We're going out to Arizona.
Yeah.
Got to do a skydive trip. Gonna have to do a sky buggy. Hang out, try to get 100 jumps in a week, hopefully. And then get ready for 2022. Got slings dropping. More bells, got a bunch of colorways, got some optic mounts, got all kinds of products coming out, and then really try to focus on hopefully COVID's behind us for 2022.
Yeah.
And start doing some collaborative stuff.
Yeah.
And really just focus on knowledge transfer.
Yeah.
Just that
Love
universal application.
Do you have a t-shirt that says knowledge transfer?
We're getting ready to make some.
Okay, you should. I'll wear that shirt. That's awesome. I love that about that knowledge transfer. That's really cool.
Might have saw the one downstairs, loyalty to the tribe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's a big deal, man. And you guys are, I mean, we're in each other's tribe, but I think that's important moving forward. You know, we had the conversation with Evan Hafer, Black Rifle Coffee, and all these things that are evolving. I'm excited about the future for you guys, but also working together in different things. I need you guys with us in South Africa. Shit hits the fan. I know we can lean on each other. I'll have a whole bunch of civilians with us, so we got to be able to protect them.
I mean, somebody's got to be wondering, like, what's Army, Navy doing together? But now they're two companies, aren't they competing? Like, hold on, they're working together?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Like, why would you not? You know, that whole consumer. I always take that as a misunderstanding of what consumers want. Consumers want options. You know what I mean? They don't want just one optic. They don't want just one gun. They don't want just one way. They want tactics. They want techniques. They want the ability to source information and make their best decisions. And this idea that we're all competition, I'm like, that's dumb. I mean, I'll host you anytime. I'll market you anytime, because I think that's what we should be doing. You know. Yeah. Oh, can I drop this bomb on the podcast thing? Or you guys are going to do that, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so you guys are launching your first podcast. By time this air, when's the first podcast drop?
Oh, no. So we did a collaborative with Sean.
Yep.
So we're doing Sean Ryan at hopefully Thanksgiving. So that'll drop.
So you went to Sean's.
We went to Sean's.
You did the whole stuff. Yep.
So we're going to unblur the face.
He did.
Yep. So your podcast, your own podcast, are you guys going to have that?
We might be able to squeeze it out New Year's Eve. Maybe.
I'll give you the equipment. I'll let you borrow that shit.
I'll
You just
hold
mail
to
it
you.
back.
Set it on camera.
It's easy.
No, shit, we might have to now.
Because if that Sean Ryan stuff, I was his first podcast in that format, and our shit blew up, and I was like, dude, if I don't have all my shit together, like all these people are like, what next, Mike? And I'm like, oh fuck. And Sean applied that pressure, and I'm like, okay, well, we need to create the next. And I think, you know, I'm not saying you should, but
Holiday podcast. Holiday podcast.
Holiday podcast. Yeah. No. Knowledge transfer.
Let's talk about being.
Call it knowledge, dude. Knowledge transfer would be dope as a name,
Knowledge transfer GBRS.
dude.
All right. Fuck it. All right. Yeah.
You got to do it.
Yeah. All right. All right.
That's a huge deal. I mean, it's once a week. It's you guys talking about shit that you guys already do, and then knowledge transfers. Oh, damn, that would be so badass. So is it? Are you guys doing it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're in.
Dropping the holidays.
So
Christmas
we
holidays.
use Shure mics, which are these mics, these stands, when I'm doing portables, and just that. What is it? The H6, Julian?
Yeah, the H600.
Yeah, the H6. That shit's on that shit's like the best recorder on the planet. You hook it into that, dude. I already got an editor for you.
Okay.
I don't like.
Hey, since you're going to put us on the spot, you're going to be on the first podcast, right?
I'll do it. We'll record it. I'll do it right now.
Do a knowledge transfer.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's actually really cool. You could use this podcast as the first podcast just to put the information out there. But you guys got so much valuable information in your heads, man. And you are the magic behind the business, because it's all of the knowledge. Like a lot of guys like you I have the same thing. It's impostor syndrome. It's like that 20 years of experience that you each have is why that you're able to come into this industry or space and just have a seat at the table. It's because of that.
It is.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's humbling.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. Thank God for you guys laying the groundwork. It's so foreign. I mean, like you lived in a bubble for 20 years. Like,
I know,
I
man.
didn't have social media. Like I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah.
Like we didn't do the YouTube thing. Like we didn't have time.
Yeah.
And you get out and you're like, this is a whole thing. Like this is a full-time commitment. Holy shit. None of this happens by accident.
Yeah.
It isn't like you made a video with a cat doing a funny dance and now you're an internet sensation. You didn't grow up on Disney Channel and now you're trying to box professionally.
Yeah. And there's a right way to do it. I mean, guys get so intimidated because they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, there's a right way to do it. You can still maintain integrity, OPSEC, and just do it the right way. And I mean, you guys are doing it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we try to do. Try to be tasteful, pay homage to all the great experience we had, all the great leaders. But we don't have to let anybody peek behind the curtain. Like, you can see it, we're here, and we'll say it, but not giving away any secrets, man. It's not.
Yeah. I love that, man.
Yeah.
Well,
There's no need for it.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, guys.
No, I
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
This place
Yeah.
is awesome.
No, I appreciate you guys,
Totally.
man. It's cool to see Navy guys in here. I think I got more Navy friends between Andy, Sean, and all the guys. But it's just needed. I mean, you guys are needed in this space to bring some, I think, relevancy and new blood, and then keep these kids on the gram who are kind of getting these misperceptions, just keep them educated so they know the right things to pay attention to.
Yeah, I had no idea that 13-year-olds had favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, this unit's better than this unit, and this guy versus this guy. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, just stop.
Yeah, it's funny. Social media is funny, though. You guys are going to crush it, man. I'm proud of you guys, and thanks for coming. Take the time to come in here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.